Hello everyone, welcome to this lecture on passing of objects to your methods and constructors. So as you can see in this program, we have a class called circle, and here we have two data members, one data member called rad. It is private. Then I have a constructor here which takes as argument an integer r and assigns it to rad. And we have the method getRadius which returns the radius. And we are testing this class in the class called testCircle, where we have the main function. Here we have a variable called radius. So this radius is a local variable, and it is local to the main function. Then we have created another variable c1 of type circle, and we are sending this radius variable as argument to the constructor. Now here you will see that we have, in the main function, we have two variables, radius and circle, c1. So radius is your primitive data type variable, so it is always passed by value, whereas c1 here, the variable c1 is a reference variable. Now if you notice how we are sending the radius variable as argument to the constructor, okay, so what happens is a location for radius is reserved in memory and it holds the value 8. So when there is a call to the constructor, the control goes to the constructor and the value of radius is copied to the variable r. So r has a totally different memory location reserved for it, and the value of radius is copied to the value of r. And then this value r now is copied to the data member or the instance variable rad of the circle object. So somewhere in memory there is memory allocated for the object c1, which has one part called rad. So in that rad, the value of r is copied. So you can see there are three copies. First, from radius it is copied to r, okay, and from r it is copied to rad. So this is passed by value. This is, I have shown this with your constructor. It is applicable for method also. Now suppose I want to pass an object to the constructor, okay. So I will create the constructor like this, circle, and the argument would be again an object of type circle. So I will type here circle c, okay. So this is my constructor where I am passing a circle object to again the constructor of the circle object. So how does this work? So what I want is that when I create another variable here, say circle c2 is new circle. Now what I give as argument is not a variable like this, not a primitive, but I want to give a circle object. So I give c1 here. c1 is a circle object, so I give c1 out here. And this c1 now will be copied to the object c. So this is not actually a copy, this is just like we make an assignment. So for object c1 there is a memory allocated. So now c1 will be pointing to that memory location. Similarly here c also will be pointing to that same memory location. So what I want to do is, now I want to assign rad, okay, to c dot, I cannot directly access rad because it is private, so I will use getRadius. So what we have done here is I have passed a circle object. This circle object is being referred to by c. Now c, I am using it to refer to the same object c1 that we have here, and then we are calling the getRadius method of c to get the radius value, and I'm assigning it to rad. Okay, so now when I'm calling this method circle, or rather I'm calling the constructor circle with an object instead of an integer variable. Okay, now C2 is created. C2 will be totally different location, memory location, but the assignment will be done by the copying the radius of C1 to the rad. So let us print the values and see what happens. So I will already have a statement for printing the radius of C1. So this radius of C2, let's save. Next, let us go to the command line. So here Java C test circle. Okay, so this is done. Let's run this and see. So this first one prints the radius of circle C1, and the second one prints here the radius of circle C2. Now circle C2. Now if we come back to our program, so here you can see that how many locations now do we have? How many objects we have? We have two objects, C1 and C2. Okay, both of them are referring to two different memory locations. All right, but when we have sent an object to your constructor, then this object is copied to the object C. So C and C1 refers to the same object. So here what we have done, we have taken the radius and we have assigned it to this to the variable or to the instance variable of the new object. So this type of a constructor, this is known as a copy constructor. So in some books you will find the term copy constructor. So this is a copy constructor. It is copying the contents of one's object to another object. Now let us modify this little bit. Let me put something else here. Okay, see, I just want to print something. C1 dot, I'm going to use a method called toString. You will come across this method later on. C2 dot toString. So I'm printing here, this is the same radius, okay, but here what I'm doing, I'm printing the object itself, C1 object and C2 object. So the toString method is used to print the object as a string. So let's save and execute. Compile. Let's see whether it compiles or not. Okay, compilation done. Now let's run. So if you see, the first is the radius. You can see here the circle is, and then it is printing the circle at the rate 15db9742, and here for circle C2 it is printing something else. These values are different. Okay, so this means that both C1 and C2 refers to two totally different memory locations, two totally different objects. Let us again come back to our program. Okay, now instead of writing this, let me write one more line out here. Circle C3. is assigned, say, C1. So here what I'm doing, I'm copying the contents of C1 to object C2. So here I'm not using any constructor. So this object C3 has been created, but it has not been allocated memory. Okay, but here what I'm doing, I'm assigning the value of C1 to C3. So let us repeat the same thing here for printing the radius and printing the object, but for C3. So instead of C2, let me write this as C3. Let's see what happens. Okay, so we go back to our command line. Compile. Run. Now if you see, look at the output. See, all three objects have same radius. But look at the values here. Circle, this is for C1, 15 dB, 9742. This is for C2, okay, CD06D, 69C, okay. Look at the third one. The third one says 15 dB, 9742. So this is the same as this, okay. So this means that both circles C1 and C3 refers to the same memory location, whereas for circle C2 it's a totally different memory location. Okay, so again coming back to our program, so here we have, because we made this assignment, we are assigning an object to another object. So what happens? The memory location remains the same, it's just the reference which changes. Okay, so the reference changes. So now again in this program I have how many memory locations? We have two memory locations only for the objects. One is for C1, one is for C2. C3 and C1 are referring to the same memory locations. However, it is not the same for C2. Even though we are calling it a copy constructor, we are passing this object, okay, here, and then it is just a copy of this. You can see, let's try this here. If we can get this here, let's just try this. So C, let us print C and see what happens. Okay, so compile, let us execute. Now look at this. See, this is for the first circle. This is C1. Okay, you can see the same values repeated here, here and here. This is for C3. This is for C1. This is for C2. This is for C3. And this one here is for C that we have printed. And all these three are the same. Because what happens when we are passing C1 here? When we are passing C1 here and it goes to C here, it's the same as writing it something like this, that C is assigned C1. So the same memory location they are both referring to. Okay, so this is about here how you can pass by reference, pass objects by reference. So again, I have explained in the context of your object or your constructor. You can do this with the help of in your methods also. So we will see another example with when we are passing objects to methods.